Yo, yo. Does this work? Does it sound good? Nice. What up? Should I be looking at that camera probably most of the time? Yeah, probably. Dope. Okay. Sweet. What's up, y'all? So I listened to obviously my first podcast on this kind of topic. Um and I guess a couple things I could have done better is probably review this talk. I think I fumbled my way through it, but I think I gave you guys, like I told you, I had 4 things, then I said I had 5 things and 7 things. But anyways, we're getting better. I obviously want to get on here and just let you guys know how self-aware I am when it comes to this stuff. And we're going through this together, and I really want to. I want your feedback, and I just want to get better every episode. I think that's kind of the play here. So yeah, I mean, I've obviously listened to all my podcasts, but we're going at this thing together, and I just want to be as vulnerable as I possibly can, because I think anyone starting a podcast, I think that's helpful. And yeah, I mean, I'm not perfect by a long shot, but what did we talk about? Just my personal life. My daughter starting school. She loves school, which is just we took her to school, and so we just dropped her off, and she didn't even turn around to say bye or anything. And me and my wife are just stuck there, kind of like with our pants on the ground, like, is this it? And so that's how that happened. She loves school. She can't wait to go back to school, which is such a blessing. It's giving my wife some time away from the kiddos too, which is so good, because she is a stay-at-home mom, and so she's enjoying that. Murfreesboro sold. However, we're still working through the transition of getting all of our third party transitioned over. And so I have to tell you guys this, because not the hardest things to say. This is kind of easy to say, but at the same time, it will kind of revert back to a little bit of the negligence that I was talking about my first 3 years in business. So Grubhub calls me, I think 4 nights ago, and I'm in the car with my wife and kids, and we're trying to transition new ownership to the new owner. And lady overseas calls me, not great English, and she basically just says, hey, in order for us to transition new ownership, we have to take care of the balance that's on the account. And I talked briefly about how much money I had lost over the course of the last couple of years, which we're going to get into. But when I hear balance, I immediately, I'm usually a glass half full kind of thing, but with the way my career has gone the last 3 or 4 years, everything's kind of been a glass half empty. And so I hear about this balance, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I immediately think that I owe Grubhub money. And so I just asked, I said, well, how much is on the balance? I don't care. I'm going to tell you guys. So it was like $148,000 is what they told me. And I'm in the car with my wife and kids. My heart goes to my feet. I want to cry. I want to punch everything, because I assume that this is money that I owe. She wasn't the best in English. That doesn't really mean anything other than there's a communication barrier. All God's people. And finally, after a little bit more of just talking, sorting this out, asking her how this could have happened, she goes, no, I don't think you understand. We owe you this money. So I'm in the car. My wife thinks that like somebody died in our family, and then immediately I'm like giving her the thumbs up, like everything's okay. But yeah, that happened this week, which is the craziest thing in the world. It just goes back to what I was saying, year 1 through 3. Like, you have to be the CFO as well as the CEO, because no one's going to care about your money as much as you do. And if you don't have your thumb on that, yeah, I mean, there was money floating in the air inside our company that I didn't even know belonged to us, which is the craziest thing. So then, of course, as a good business person does, I go look at my other third parties, and DoorDash was the same way. I overpaid in taxes. I had tons of money left out in La La Land that wasn't in our bank account, and I was trying to operate that way. Crazy. You go, why, God? Why? What are you trying to teach me through this? However, I'm so thankful that Grubhub was my savings account the last 3 years. However, it could have made my life a lot easier having those funds So I don't know. I guess the point is just it goes back to what we talked about on the first podcast. Is it's just not enough to be the CEO. You have to be the CFO, or if numbers is your thing, you need to figure out how to lead better. But you've got to be both and for a long time to figure out everything in your company so you can operate at a high level. We were not. We were operating at a high level. It's a miracle that we sustained $500,000 not being in our bank account over the last 2 or 3 years and stayed afloat, quite frankly. So kudos to my team, kudos to what we accomplished, and I'm so thankful to, I guess I'm thankful to Grubhub. I mean, thanks for the phone call. It would have been nice getting that phone call a year earlier, but it is what it is. So anyways, that happened this week. What else is new in my world? We had a show at the Capitol Arts with all the music stuff we're doing. I think the show went great. Super thankful for the turnout. Jackie Lee is the artist that I'm managing, and I kind of felt like a parent towards the end of the show in that, like, I think Jackie probably had a little bit too much to drink, and I think he misrepresented himself certain moments. We haven't even talked about this. If he hears this on the podcast, Jackie, it's coming. I love you to death, and I think you're amazing, and I think a lot of people did. But at the end of the day, like, it kind of hurt my heart a little bit because it's like I know who that guy is and I know what he means by certain things. But yeah, occasionally we overindulge, and it is what it is. But anyways, Jackie Lee is one of the best human beings I know, the purest heart, one of the best voices. But all the guys did well. But yeah, going through that emotion for the first time as an artist, manager relationship. And I felt like Jackie, at one point threw a chair off of a balcony, and I was like, oh no, how do we come back from this? So that's going on in that. Let's see here. Anything else cool in my personal life? Not really. My 1-year-old's not sleeping at all, so it's musical beds at night right now. We're just everywhere. I'm ending up with 2 toddlers in my bed, and then I can't sleep. Then I go to the toddler's bed, and then he or she will come running in there, and then I go to the couch, and then back to the bed, and so that's happening. I don't know. I think that's it. I'm not gonna bore you guys. We'll jump right in. If something else pops up, I'll let you guys know. Oh yeah, we're starting to. So my buddy Logan Turner, who I'm staring at, and my buddy Bo, who I'm also staring at, we get a phone call from Ben Williams, one of my songwriter buddy friends, and then another friend of mine named Logan Crosby, and we're going to produce their podcast, which is really, really cool. It's called Nobody Asked for This, I think. Is it Nobody Asked or Nobody Asked for This? Nobody asked for this? Y'all can talk. No, yeah, nobody asked for this. So shameless plug, go follow it. You probably won't ever see me on the screen, but I'll be back there somewhere with Bo and the homies and Logan and trying to make them look good. So we're super stoked about that. So that's everything that's going on in my world, restaurants and the entertainment space, trying to do this podcast, and kids, wife at home. So if there's anything else you want me to elaborate on, just comment, and I'll try to talk about it the next time. Next time we should have a guest. So we'll get through this, and you guys can hear me ramble for 2 episodes, then we'll dip. So we talked about years 1 through 3. I'll race through those points really quick because I felt like I was everywhere trying to get through that. First time trying to hold this microphone for 45 minutes was kind of nerve-wracking. But I said the first 3 years in business was, there's some non-negotiables that I feel like you had to have. Like, I felt like, obviously there's more ways than one to be successful in business, but I felt like most everyone would agree on these things. Number 1 was humility. Number 2 was getting your business social metrics correct. Be the CFO and the CEO. Be available. Instead of being scared of what you don't know, leverage it. I think that was my big points. And then from there, we talk about systems and processes, which is extremely boring, but it is so freaking important, and I'm going to tell you why, because I just came out of this. So I'm excited to talk about year 5 through 7 because it's the most relevant to me. I'm just getting out of it, so I feel like I'll be able to communicate this better than years 1 through 3, even though I was able to kind of jot those down at some point in my life. So 50% of small businesses fail within the next 5 years. 70% within 10 years, 75 in 15 years, and 80 within 20 years. So being able to sustain a company, I think, is extremely tough, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Even though those first 3 or 4 years is when most people fail, you get to a point, you kind of let your foot off the gas, and you think that everything's going to work out, and then you get punched in the face like I did the last 3 years. So what got us in this mess? We talked about, everyone's very aware of my last 3 years. I would say it was close to $1 million that we lost as a company. And it was going so fast, I couldn't correct it. Once I found out that we lost, $250,000, we lose $500,000, it just, everything was happening around me, I felt like, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. And so, how did we get here and what happened? I think the overwhelming point of this whole episode is going to be this. We can all do something that works, but what is going to last? I think we can all say, hey, this is going to work. Let's go do this. But can you build a company that's going to last forever, long after you? Like, that's the goal. Like, your goal is to operate and build a company that if you died tomorrow, something happened tomorrow, if you exited your company tomorrow, that the business is still self-sustaining and still making money. That truthfully has to be the play. For me, if I left my company, if I left my stores, after year 3 or 4, I think I had a lot of good people, but it would have probably imploded, I would say. I think I could rightfully so look at you today and say, with my 2 restaurants and my leadership team that I met with this morning, I do very minimal right now. I'm getting back into the restaurant space, but it operates without me fully, and I'm proud of that. But it took the last 3 or 4 years to get us to this place. And so how do you come up with something that works rather than something that lasts? It worked. My restaurant worked only when I did. When I'm in the restaurants and things were flowing and functioning, we were operating at a high level. When I was not there, we kaplunk. So it's not going to last, I guess, is the point here. And so when we grew and I came out of the restaurants, and we had 4 locations, and I had 0 systems and processes in place because I was doing it all. That's how we got here, quite frankly. I had 0 systems and processes put in place. What are you doing inside your company right now? Yes, that works, but it's going to work, but is it going to last? How is it going to last with systems and processes? It's boring as crap, but it is one of the most important ways to grow a company, point blank, period. If you don't have systems and processes, if every person on your team doesn't have a list of what they're supposed to be doing that day in my kitchen, without me there to hold their hand through it, or just to do it if they don't know what they're doing, the company cannot grow and it can't sustain without you. Systems and processes are extremely important. I'll give a free shout out to Jolt. Jolt is one of our favorite apps that we ever took on at the restaurants. That pretty much, it's an app on your phone. All my kids have it, to where it shows exactly what they need to be doing when they show up for their shift and how they clean their station after their shift. It's up to us to obviously train with systems and processes. Everyone's being trained the same for what they do in between those. And so, I'm not a systems guy. I'm a guy that just shows up and says, I don't know how I'm going to get it done. I'm just going to get it done. Well, that worked. It wasn't going to last. I understand that I'm a rare bird. Not everyone operates like me. And quite frankly, it's hard for me to come in and correct something if they're not doing it the exact same way everyone's supposed to be doing it. It makes it really hard on me. So figure out your systems and processes. Sit down with your team. Do it for 3-4 days. Come back to the table. This is what, for me, my analogy is restaurants, right? So this is what the subtable's role and responsibility is. This is what the make table. This is what I want my managers to do, GMs do, and write it down. Have a book for your team. This is your role and your responsibility for your team. If you don't do this well, you don't work for us. And that's essentially how we did it, and that's how we got to this point. Sam Reckart was a massive component to this. He came from Chick-fil-A, and nobody does it better than Chick-fil-A. If you go through a Chick-fil-A drive-thru, you understand that there's systems and processes in place, and everybody is doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, down to a science. And so Sam came in and helped us tremendously getting some of these systems and processes in place, and we've been able to carry those with us. So that's the overwhelming point. You could probably shut this thing off at this point. Go work on your systems and your processes. Write them down. Make sure everyone understands their role and responsibilities with and without you there. So what got us into this mess? Number one is I grew when I wanted to, not when the consumer demanded I do. And it cost me. I bought 2 failing restaurants in Tennessee because I love the idea of being bigger. I love the idea of Maybe I hadn't figured out the humility piece just yet, but I just wanted to get bigger for the sake of being bigger. I felt like if I could get my top line, how funny is this? This is actually comical. I think what I thought was I wanted my top line to just become bigger, and instead of trying to crunch $1 million, we jumped to, well, $2.5 million, we jumped to about $5 million company. I felt like if I had $5 million coming into our company, then, which is not big, by the way, that I could make it work, right? Like if my top line got bigger, then I was so good at this numbers thing. Keep in mind, I'm so bad at the numbers thing, but at 28, 29, this is what I was thinking. If 5 million was coming in, I could crunch 5 million better than I could 1 million. But I wasn't crunching 1 million well, and I had no idea that I wasn't until year 5 through 7 when I couldn't crunch $5 million. There was so much going out. There was way too much going out than, way more going out than was coming in. And I didn't realize it before it was too late. So I think when it comes to growth, don't grow when you want to, grow when your consumer demands you to grow. So I'm looking at Bo and, and his photography business. Don't bring on new clients until you genuinely can't, or new employees until you genuinely can't you can't physically be everywhere and you're turning away business left and right, truthfully. Don't just grow to say, oh, I got a good shooter and I want to bring them in. If you don't have systems and processes in place and your photography or your video is going to suck because you're not the one shooting it, and now you're being you're not being represented well, because it's not necessarily how you would do it. Dallas Wilson has Dallas Wilson wedding films, and I sat in his pool one day, and he was turning away more weddings than he was shooting. I said, dude, what are you doing? I was like, now's the time to grow. You're turning away wedding after wedding. And so he did that and created White Hart Wedding Films, a subsidiary to Dallas Wilson Wedding Films. And I think it's worked out for him, but he did it because he was turning away more business than he was taking in, not because Dallas just wanted to grow for the hell of it. And I think that's a major, major point. Don't grow because you think it's cool to grow and have a big company. Grow when your consumer demands you to grow. And that's not what I did. Secondly, I started flirting with the D word, diversify, right? We've heard this so many times. And I don't think diversifying your portfolio is wrong at all. But at some point, you got to get good at one thing to be able to diversify. And I still wasn't good yet after year 4. I started diversifying my portfolio way too soon. Keep the main thing the main thing. Build a brand that's going to sustain itself. And then with the extra money, you can go on and invest in real estate. You can put it here. You can open up other concepts, do different things. I started diversifying way too soon. So I take my eye off the 8 ball over here. I think I'm good. I think I got the right people in place. Little did I know I didn't. And this is not going to be the most popular opinion, but I do think that for me, in my personal story, that wasn't the best thing for me. I was not great. I wanted to be great at everything, and I think life's too short to be great at everything. I think it was McConaughey that said this. He said, life's barely long enough to get good at one thing. so be careful what you get good at. There's something to be said about sticking to the main thing and keeping the main thing for a long amount of time. I think when you start diversifying too soon and you take your eye off the 8 ball, when you're really not as good as you think you are over here, it starts this crazy storm of struggles that I just lived. Number 3, we just talked about this, but I did not have systems and processes in place. Massive problem. One of the things we did too, and I think this is super helpful, is we were doing projections, but we were doing projections from a standpoint of like which is how you do projections, what the last 5 years the last 5 years looked like. And so we did our projections based on those numbers, and we were like, okay, if we continue to grow at this pace, this is what we can do this year if we do these things. One thing we forgot to mention at that table, which I think was one of the biggest detriments to my last 3 years, was, but what if it doesn't? What if you get kicked in the teeth this year? What if your sales go 10, 15% the other way? What if you lose half of your clientele? Then what? And I think that was big, because when our projections weren't panning out, when the numbers quarterly weren't doing what they were, weekly, monthly weren't doing it, we didn't have a plan, right? We didn't have a plan B. We just had our projections, and our projections were supposed to be right. Okay, but what if your projections are way off? Because year 1, when we did our projections, when I brought Sam on board, we crushed it. Like we were literally within $1,000, and we just thought that we were just high on the hog. We got this thing. And then year 2 comes around, which was actually year 6. Rogue. Numbers going everywhere. Losing, we were 10, 20% down monthly. And that's across the board, all 4 locations. We didn't project what. I would even go on a limb and just say this. What if it just stays the same? Like, was this meeting worth it? Like, if we're going to sit at a table and talk about projections, what if we project that our sales stay exactly? We didn't even do that, y'all. We just projected the same amount of growth that we'd had 5 years. Seems simple. Seems like we did probably the right thing. Well, in all fairness, I think we did. But no one in the room said, okay, what if it goes the other direction? Now what? Or what if we just maintain sales? Should we spend here? So we bring on a social media team that we were paying $3,000 or $4,000 a month that we budgeted because we thought we were going to have the sales to do it. We spend more on ad spend. We spend more on, and this is all the stuff that we did the top of the year. We signed contracts for this stuff. Like you sign on with people and you say, hey, we're going to pay you $40,000 this year to run our social media, $50,000 a year to run our social media. And we budgeted for it based on our growth sales. We wouldn't assign them one last year because it didn't make sense. But it didn't happen, y'all. So now my expenses are way high and my sales are going the other direction, and I'm tied into this. And business ethically says, I can't, yeah, you can call some people and say, hey, I can't afford you anymore, but that's not what we did. Right, wrong, or indifferent. We kept all of our vendors. We paid all of our vendors, and we got through the season we did. But there were some bonehead decisions that we made. We got an apartment in Nashville that we treated as like an office for my people. We budgeted that at the beginning of the year. Little did I know Nashville was going to lose me money, so why would I invest in that town? But that was a year-long lease we couldn't get out of. What other stuff that we sign on for based on our projections being the same way they were? Bonehead decision. You need to do that, but I'd say you do that when you're a massive, massive company. When $100,000, $200,000 loss at a certain location isn't going to absolutely destroy you. I think you need to get to a $11 million company before you start making the decisions we did and adding $7,000 to $10,000 expense line items based on projections that hadn't came true yet. They're called projections for a reason. And we should have made decisions based on, let's just see if we maintain first and then go. So I think that was a big deal. So those are like my biggies. And so you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, so how in the world did you sustain? Like, so how did your company not implode? How did you lose $1 million and you're still here? I never borrowed from the bank. I borrowed $350,000, I think, when I was 28, 29 on top of my first original loan, because that's what I told the bank that would take me to turn around these 2 restaurants in Tennessee. And truthfully, that is the only thing I think that we borrowed at that point. So how did we sustain? I think we got really, really good, but I did bullet point these. We got really, really good at the numbers, and I'll talk about this. But some of the emotional things as me as a leader that I think I did well during the season was, number one, was I never let my team see me sweat. I knew how much money we were losing. My team never did. They knew that I was stressed at times. It got to the point where there was no other way to communicate them other than to tell them that we weren't doing so hot. However, I did everything I could to keep that part of the company, the negative things and my emotional behavior under wraps. I think 90% of the time, my team saw the best version of me. I just never walked into my store with the bad stuff in mind, with how much money we had lost, or I never let them see me sweat. And I think as the leader goes, kind of so does the company. And so even though we were going through such a crazy time, I had to compartmentalize my thoughts and walk out of my office knowing full well what our company was doing and walk into the restaurant. Not put on a show, but doing what I needed to do for my staff. I feel like that was a big deal. I became financially literate. I knew where every penny in our company was going, truthfully. You will say, well, what about the Grubhub account? Well, I missed that one, okay? But everything else, I had to operate at a high level because we were losing, so I had to go find every penny for the last 3 years. There's only one way for us to sustain and not file bankruptcy and go under, and this whole thing, everything that I'd worked for my first 5 years, be done for. There's only one way. I had to go get financially literate. I knew every dime that was coming in and coming out, period. And I had to go find it. We cut expenses. We had to fire. We trying to think of some of the other things that we did that was really, really good for us. I mean, we got really, really good with our food waste. We got we demanded more of our team. How do you demand more of your team in a season of scarcity? I think it just comes with leadership, loving on your people, never letting them know really that we're operating with zero funds. You got to be a leader worth following in seasons like that. And I think your integrity and who you are and how hard you work is probably the thing that's going to keep people on board. Did a lot of people leave? You bet. We lost a lot of people during this season. But I think it's to bring the team that I have now. And that's kind of the way I look at it. So I think number 3 is I picked humility back up. I think my first 3 years were quite humbling. I think I got too big for my britches. I think we grew into 4 units. I thought I was high on the hog, and then you start losing a bunch of money. You have no choice but to humble yourself again, and to pick humility back up. And so I put that down here. I think I rested well. I think my first 3 years I didn't rest much, but I do think that I was able to find peace in this season, and I think it's super important to be level-headed enough. It goes back to how does your team see you. Your company can crumble, but I think, and it didn't crumble, but you can go through so tough seasons, but I don't think your family deserves to see you in your whole life being dictated based on how much money you're making. I don't think your friends need to see that. And so I rested well. Even though we were losing money, I did feel like my faith played a massive component, and I trusted that God had me here for a reason, and that I still rested in his palm. And I knew that at some point we were just gonna come out of it. I mean, I just know how my God operates, and I knew at some point, regardless of what we were going through, we were going to get out of this, and it was only going to be by the grace of God. It wasn't because Spence did anything. I had screwed this thing up so bad. And one of the things through all this was that I felt, God telling me was just, hey, man, I got this. Like, just hand me your company. You quit trying to do it all. You put yourself in this situation. Let me try to get yourself out. And so I felt like I rested well. I slept good at night. And I think that's a big part. You can drive yourself nuts, staying up all night, trying to get all this money back, and then it just, when you're not resting well, nobody wins. I felt like I rested well. I don't know why I chose to put that down, but that's true. I started delegating authority. That was hard for me. Like I said, if someone wasn't doing it right my first 3 years, I just went and did it. I never delegate responsibility. I think people get that mixed up. I delegated authority in all of my restaurants, but if something went wrong, it was always my fault, and it needs to stay my fault. I never delegated responsibility in my company, but I did delegate authority. I will take responsibility for anything that goes on in our company, right, wrong, indifferent. However, I did start delegating authority. It was tough on me, but I had to. I had 4 locations. I couldn't be at all 4. I was driving myself crazy. I was driving my wife crazy, trying to get down to Nashville, come back, staying here, doing that. Having kids during all this process was just absolutely absurd. So started delegating. You've got to be a good delegator. I had an unbelievable support system that understood the mood swings and the long hours, which was my family. My team saw a good version of me, but I think it was easy for me to project at home because I felt like they were supposed to understand, maybe. And, I'm so thankful for my wife and my kids and my friends, and my parents, obviously, during the last 3 years, because I did project, I think, on them probably more than anything. And I used it as a reason to maybe drink more and yell when I shouldn't have, and trying to numb without going, to the good book or my Savior. And I think, I had a great support system. I think choosing your significant other is extremely important. I have not been perfect by a long shot, but she has supported me through this whole thing, and kept me sane on the days that I just needed to be hugged, I guess, when I had no idea how I was going to get myself out of this. And so super thankful for my family and friends and the people that checked in, because I'm a prideful son of a bitch, really. Like, I didn't call people and tell them how much money I was losing on the regular. I wanted them to assume I was making bazillion dollars. But the people that knew me the best knew what I was going through, and that was my family. And so I'm super appreciative for the crazy hours of me trying to figure this thing out, and the mood swings of losing another bill show up. And yeah, I think I had an incredible support system. And the last thing I'll say is I never gave up, because I kind of know how I want my story to end. And I think that this is kind of how I'll leave you. You know, we're all just a story that's going to be told when you're long gone. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, they're just going to tell the story of Spence Sheldon. That's it. And I think it's up to you and his family and his career, I guess, but it's going to be up to you on how you want that story to end. I knew I did not want my story, a part of my story or part of a chapter in a story, to be that he filed bankrupt, that he gave up, on his team, that he gave up on his family. I look at my life like a story, and I knew that I wanted this chapter to be a redemptive one, because I felt like God was going to get a lot of glory, and I felt like my team deserved that. I never gave up. So I guess, what's the story you want to tell, right? And what story are you telling yourself right now? I think I had to get out of my own way through all this. Oh my gosh, this is God punishing me for this. This is, I'm not good with numbers. These are all the stories I told myself through this season. And I think it's important right now, wherever you are in your business and your relationships, like, what's the story that you're telling yourself that's holding you back from everything that you were meant or called to be? I think I'm not good at this. I don't have the right people in place. Don't have the right support. I don't have the financial means. Bullcrap. Just go get it. Go do it, regardless of the resources that you have. We all started somewhere. And I think when I was going through this season, I gave myself so many excuses as to why I was going through this season. And I think I wish I would have told myself more positive things when I was going through some of the toughest seasons of my life. So what story are you telling yourself right now that's holding you back? We've all heard this, but I love this, because this is the story that I think I told myself at 28 years old. And I think we've all heard it. It's the have, do, be, or the be, do, have. But most people are have, do, be people, right? When I have this thing, when I have this, then I'll be able to do, so I can be this person. The problem with that is you're waiting, quite frankly, forever, because it's the opposite. We must become that person. Who must I become, and what must I do to have the life I want? You think it's the opposite. You think you got to have this in order to do this, to be this. I'm telling you, you need to be first. You need to be the type of person that can handle the financial success. You need to be the type of person that can lead a team and lead them well. And I think for me, I was just like, okay, God, when I get all this squared away, I'll be a better person. I'll be a better leader. And he was going, dude, you're going to continue to lose money, and your company is going to continue to struggle until you become the person that can actually, steward this better. And I learned that through all that. So yeah, what story do you want to tell? I shut down restaurants. I sold one. I lost a lot of money in that process, but I stayed put. I became the man, and we became a company that could handle $1 million deficit. So we're as strong as we've ever been, but going through it, you think this is your downfall, right? I think I stayed curious. I said that in the first podcast, but I think it's so important that staying curious, to me, lightens it's a more playful way to look at your company. I was so curious to know what was on the other side of this. Like, I know that sounds extremely playful when you're losing the amount of money as I was losing, But I think that's just a fun way to look at it. Like, I don't know why I'm going through this or why things are going well, but I can't wait to see what this looks like on the other side, right? I just think that that's a really fun way to look at your business rather than just taking this whole thing and just, like, screw that. Just be fun with it. Dude, I don't know what's going on, but I'm so curious of what the man I'm going to be, what my company looks like on the other side of this. I just try to live in a constant anticipation of what version of me and my company are on the other side of tough times, no matter the cost. As for humility, I didn't have a choice. When you lose like I did the past 3 years, humility was the only answer. I think business is a ton of misses and a few good makes, period. But the beauty is in the misses. The misses shape you into becoming not just the best business version of yourself, but the best version of yourself. Truthfully, I think humility looks good on everyone. Business is not easy. Nobody said it would ever be. But embrace the grit, the grind, the discipline that only 1% of the world can manage. I think Michael Jordan said it best. I've failed over and over in my life, and that is why I succeed. I confidently can say that I would go do the last 3 years all over again for what it did to me personally and the man that I am, what it did for my company and the company that we are. Was it fun when I went through it? No way. No, it sucked. But what it taught me inside of business and my personal life, I'd do it all over again. It sucked, but I wouldn't change a thing. And I think that's the most powerful piece that I can tell you. It's like you don't learn a whole lot when everything's hunky-dory. When the company's going good, you're making a lot of money, the relationship's going good. Unfortunately, that's when we tend to slip up, and that's when I did. When I got good at figuring out who I was in the rough time of my life. When I got good at actually not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, it came to me when I was losing $1 bazillion, it felt like. So I think I would embrace the suck of business, because in those moments is when you figure out who you are and what your company is made of. And you'll be so proud of yourself when you get on the other side. And I think that's important too. So I'll leave you with this. Stay humble, stay put, stay curious, and don't ever give up on your dream. You know how you want your story to end. One of resilience, perseverance, one that is going to break down walls where prejudices and financial illiteracy once built. Now go. The world is waiting on you to write your story. Make it one worth reading. Love you guys. I'll talk to you guys soon. Please like, share, follow, subscribe. We will, hopefully, we'll get a guest next week for sure. So you guys don't, or 2 weeks from now, so you guys don't have to hear me again. But I wanted to get that out. One of my favorite things about podcasting too, truthfully, is like my kids have something documented that they'll forever get to, hear. I'm not good at like in real time trying to get pictures and documenting things. I'm not a journaler. I need to be a journaler. But podcasting for me too is like I got to go through some of the hardest years of my life just now. And my kids get to go listen to Dad talk about it maybe one day. And that's a cool thing for me. It's out there. If you have any questions, please holler. But yeah, we'll get guests back on here. I wanted to get through that. But yeah, we'll talk soon.